The Holy Gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, according to John.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Will you pray with me? You might be familiar with this prayer. It's a body prayer. So all you have to do is move your hands the way I do. With my feet firmly planted on the earth and my head reaching toward the heavens, I welcome Christ into my heart that I may be a blessing to the world. Amen. Please be seated. Oh, St. Andrews, St. Andrews. So good to be here. It's so joyful. And I'm so proud to tell people, whenever I tell people that you are my sending parish, I do it with great pride. And I'm especially proud of you now for the grace. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm proud of you. You are just so graceful so far in this transition, and I have no doubts that you will continue to be. So I am indeed one of your grateful seminarians whom you have nurtured and brought up really through the years. My name is Connie Bowman, if you don't know me. And guess what? I'm a senior! Citizen! Seriously, it's been a pretty long haul, but a joyful one. And I'm like 6 credits away from graduation, but I don't have senioritis. It's interesting. Do you guys remember senioritis when you were a senior in high school or college, and you just kind of started to be a slacker or little lackadaisical? Well, guess what? I don't have it. I still love my classes. Strangely, I actually had fun taking the general ordination exams. What is wrong with me? Seriously. Although, I have to say I'm glad they're over. They were last week. And I really love the entire discernment process, which started with Jennifer, discerning ordained vocation. For some reason, I can't remember. Ordained vocation. In just DOV, as the diocese calls it, we get really good or really practiced at telling our call stories. And sharing our personal call over and over. We kind of get good at it, and what we learn from listening to the call stories of others is invaluable. And in times of transition, like now, St. Andrews, I think it might be wise to pay close attention, to keep our eyes and ears open for where God is calling us, personally and as a collective, as a community. Call is a familiar theme in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, and there are different connotations to the meaning in the original Hebrew and Greek. One of them refers to a summons or a call to serve God in a particular way. A call can be personal or communal, as I said, and calls can be experienced in so many different ways. About 14 years ago, a colleague and I were working on a video series that we hoped would be picked up by one of the burgeoning cable networks that were coming up at the time. Remember when Discovery opened up in Silver Spring and they had all these different offshoots, and now there's, I don't know how many, right? In our pilot, we interviewed 3 people, and 2 of them were very well known. But then the third was someone we all know and love, Reverend Canon Dina Van Cobber. What I discovered while working on that project surprised me. I was fascinated by Dina's story and her decision to become a priest in the Episcopal Church. Her call story was so much more interesting to me than the other 2 more famous women, and one of them was Gloria Steinem. Only recently, did it occur to me that this might have been a nudge toward my call. Calls can take years to unfold. A father took his daughter's face tenderly into his hands, looked deeply into her eyes, and told her, "One day you will be a successful writer." In a book that was gifted to me over the holidays, Cole Arthur Riley writes about her understanding of call, which is deeply interwoven with her experience of growing up as a Black woman in America. In This Here Flesh, she questions the traditional interpretation of the call story of the prophet Samuel, called by God to help usher in a whole new leadership model. Arthur Riley challenges the way we sometimes approach our call. And she writes, when I first began going to church, I couldn't believe just how casually people spoke about being called by God, like it was ordinary as having your mom on speed dial. A God who simply tells you when to move abroad or change jobs or get married or stay single. I resented this for quite some time, she writes, that God would spend her time talking to people about which state to live in, but would not rouse herself to tell me that she is real or I am loved. It weighs on you. It's a kind of injustice that God would call some so distinctly and precisely. Sometimes we're called to question. Arthur Riley suggests we go deeper, exploring clues to our calling in the struggles of our own people, what they wrestled with, and how they walked on, sometimes with difficulty, however, maybe with fresh new insights and dreams and visions. In our gospel reading, Jesus is calling his disciples. Nathanael from Cana isn't so sure about this Jesus of Nazareth fellow. His friend Philip insists, "Come and see." As Nathanael walks toward Jesus, his mind is blown. As he often does in the Gospels, Jesus sees clear through to Nathanael's soul. How could he have known, Nathanael wonders, even as his own eyes are open to Jesus, the Word made flesh, standing right there in front of him? In that moment, Nathanael sees, accepts his call, and he follows. A call can be clear and instantaneous. There is something in every one of us that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine. It is the only true God we will ever have. That was Howard Thurman. In his autobiography, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we celebrate tomorrow, described his call as an inner urge that came gradually. Initially, he felt called to be a doctor or lawyer, but as he started to prepare, he found himself feeling more and more frustrated. One Sunday, after preaching, he quietly accepted that God was calling him to serve in ministry. A call can arise quietly. In retrospect, I wonder if I pushed my call away so hard and for so long that I developed a shoulder injury. Really. To be fair, now it could have been from tennis, but I wonder if by pushing it away, I manifested a physical symptom. When I finally scheduled a walk with Dina to share what was going on in my heart and my soul, right around this parking lot out here, my shoulder pain disappeared. A call is sometimes annoyingly persistent. Cole Arthur Riley cautions against our Western inclination to associate calling solely with vocation. For many, calling is experienced as a dream passed down by ancestors whose ambitions were either thwarted or interrupted by trauma and unjust systems. Sometimes we are called to be truth tellers. What I love about Arthur Riley's concept of calling is that she dares to burrow deeper beneath the surface. In exploring our calls, she encourages us to embrace both the shadow and the light, to explore the many colorful threads that have been intricately woven together to create the unique fabric of each of our lives. I can't help but feel that getting curious about our call might be somehow more important than ever. By asking good questions, listening well, and fearlessly speaking truth as we share our stories with one another, there is such potential for a reinvigoration of faith, a kind of liberation for all of us, if we're ready for it. This will require slowing down, cultivating peace within, and being truly present. Riley cautions us to be patient. She writes, "It takes time to know peace when all we've known is insecurity." We can learn a lot from the call stories of others, and we can be liberated. We can be liberated from learned behaviors and patterns that no longer serve us for the greater good. In a healthy spiritual community like this one, we get to practice. We get to practice by sharing our call stories and the many different ways that we've experienced calls from God. I'm convinced that this is really an exciting time for the church. It can be especially exciting for smaller communities to explore Howard Thurman's idea of the genuine. Like Nathaniel, perhaps you are called to release old ways of thinking. Like Samuel, maybe there's some truth-telling that needs to happen. Aren't you curious, St. Andrews, about what God's up to right here, right now? A wise woman once shared this with me years ago in a video that interestingly never got picked up. God is always speaking to us, she said. It's a matter of getting ourselves in a position to hear. Making that final loop around the parking lot at St. Andrews with Dina, I felt my throat begin to tighten. Finally, I couldn't hold back tears. Dina asked me what I was feeling. It's strange, I told her. It's this odd mixture of fear and joy. A call can be scary, and and joyful beyond our wildest imaginings. It's thrilling, really, this sometimes unexpected epiphany that God knows us through to our souls and never offended by our rejection or our resistance, keeps calling us ever closer. As the psalmist writes, such knowledge is too wonderful. Friends, we are all called. You know that. The poet Amina Brown writes, God is always waiting, lingering after the doors close and the phone doesn't ring and we are finally alone. God is always saying, I love you, I am here, don't go, stay, please. God is pleading with us to trust, to love, to listen. God's voice is melody and bass lines and whisper and thunder and grace. Sometimes, she writes, the best thing we can do is put our hands in the middle of our chest, feel the rhythm there, turn down the noise in our minds and in our world, and whisper, God, whatever you have to say, I'm here. I'm listening. Amen.